Welcome and greetings to everyone. In this video, I make an effort to introduce an author to you, particularly one of his books, which became very controversial in France towards the end of the 19th century and early 20th century. So it's a pretty ancient book, comparatively ancient book that I'm referring to, but it's important that we cultivate acquaintance with publications of this kind so that we know how Christians belonging to different countries and different epochs, different ages, experienced the Christian faith, what their perceptions and concerns were, and therefore, what are the various antecedents, that is, things that have gone before us, that constitute the heritage that we today claim to belong to. Now, the name of this author is Lamennais. It's a French name. I'll spell the name for you. Lamennais, pronounced Lamennais. He was a Catholic priest, a monk, so Abbe Lamennais. He belonged to an comparatively aristocratic family. He was a great scholar. He took his vocation as a priest very seriously, but began to increasingly feel great inner turbulence at what the Catholic Church advocated and how it treated matters concerning the faith. In fact, there's another very interesting book titled Indifference to Matters Concerning the Faith. Indifference to Matters Concerning the Faith by Abbe Lamennais. And he was very popular at one point, but when the church found that his views were radical, that is to say, not exactly coincident with the thinking or the official line of the Catholic Church, they got wild with him and they excommunicated with him, which shows the extent of tolerance that may be expected from church authorities and the respect that they show to freedom of thought, which I believe is fundamental to human freedom and also, therefore, fundamental to religious freedom. To me, freedom of religion without freedom of thought and expression is really meaningless. It becomes only the freedom to obey, which is nothing but the freedom to be slaves. Now, I'm going to read with you 5, 6, maybe 7 pages from this book. That is, the book is titled Words of a Believer. The title of this book is Words of a Believer by Lamennais. And I'm going to read with you pages 63 to 70, so about 8 pages. Now, why I am reading these pages with you is that in this section, Lamennais expresses in an allegorical fashion, that's in the form of a vision, his idea as to what has gone wrong with Christianity. What is the terrible plight in which the way of Jesus Christ has come to be in the modern times. After all, end of the 18th century, early 19th century, or the first half of the 19th century is not particularly old, so it's part of the modern age in historical terms. That's why I refer to him also as part of the modern age. Now, without any further explanation, let me read that section. I may pause in between in order to offer some explanatory remarks if I think it is necessary. Let's read. And his style is allegorical, so it's in the form of a vision, very much like the visions in the Old Testament. So it's part of the biblical tradition. I read. It was a night of darkness. A starless sky hung heavily over the earth, like the covering of a black marble over a tomb. And nothing broke the stillness of that night but a strange noise, as of the light rustling of wings, which at times is heard over the country and the city. So far he is describing the setting. And then the darkness thickened, and everyone felt his soul shrink within him, and a shudder ran through his veins, through the veins of the person who has this vision. Now, from now onwards, the vision begins. And in a hall hung with black and lighted by the dull red glimmer of a single lamp, 7 men clothed in purple. Now, purple is the color universally associated with bishops, archbishops, the church hierarchy, purple. And purple is also associated with royalty. So, through the color, uh, bishopric, the office of the bishop, is made equal to the office of a king. That is to say, bishops are historically the counterparts of kings and monarchs and religion. That is to say, what kings and chakravartins or monarchs or emperors are to secular governance, bishops are to ecclesiastic or church governance. So they are the kings in our midst, and obviously they conduct themselves accordingly. So they are clothed in purple with crowns upon their heads. They were sitting upon 7 seats of iron. That is to say, their thrones, cathedra, seat of the bishop. And in the middle of the hall was raised a throne composed of bones. This vision, that the bones in this vision connects it to the vision given to Ezekiel in the book of Ezekiel. So, in the middle of the hall was raised a throne composed of bones, and at the foot of the throne, in place of a footstool, there was a crucifix overturned. Now, that's also very symbolic. Crucifix is overturned. And before the throne, a table of ebony. The table of ebony actually is corresponds to the altar in the church, right? A table of ebony, and upon the table a vessel filled with blood. Now, this corresponds to the Holy Eucharist, and the parallel is very, very striking. A vessel filled with blood, red and foaming, and a human skull. The human skull takes the place of the chalice in which wine is administered to the believers as part on Sundays when they receive the communion. And these 7 men with crowns, 7 of course is a perfect number. In the book of Revelation, we have the 7 churches of Asia. So that background must be kept in mind. And these 7 men with crowns seemed pensive and sad. Pensive is gloomily thoughtful. And from the depths of their sunken sockets, their eyes from time to time shot forth sparks of livid fire. They are not associated with any tenderness, any love, any mercy, anything that is comfortingly, reassuringly human. All human qualities are drained out. And one of them raising himself, now the real action within the vision begins. One of them raising himself approached the throne with tottering steps and placed his foot upon the crucifix, which is indicative of the utter contempt in which the church authorities hold Jesus and everything associated with him. So, this is part of the liturgy, the diabolic or satanic liturgy followed by these 7 men in purple. At that moment, his limbs trembled and he seemed about to faint. The rest looked on him motionless. They made not the slightest movement, but an indescribable expression passed over their features, and an unearthly smile contracted their lips. And he who had seemed about to faint stretched forth his hand and seized the vessel filled with blood, poured it into the skull and drank it. So that is his communion, right? And the draught seemed to strengthen him. He is now revived by the blood he drank. And raising his head, this cry came forth from his breast, like the sound of the dull death rattle. Death rattle is the noise produced from the throat of a man who is dying. Now, this is what he says after his communion, after drinking the blood from the altar. Cursed be Christ, who hath restored liberty to the earth. What is the great crime that Jesus did for which he was punished? He brought liberty into the world, into the life of people. Till his time, believers were the slaves of the religious establishment, the priestly class. And Jesus liberated them from their slavery and brought them into a state of freedom. So, cursed be Christ who hath restored liberty to the earth. And the other 6 crowned men raised themselves together and together sent forth the same cry. All 7 of them together now shout, Cursed be Christ who hath restored liberty to the earth. After which, sitting down again upon their seats of iron, the first said, My brethren, what shall we do to stifle liberty? Now, Jesus has introduced this very dangerous element. Now, it is imperative for us to stifle and crush out this liberty. What shall we do to stifle liberty? For our reign is finished if hers commences. Hers means liberty. Liberty is here imagined as a person. This is called personification of an abstract virtue. It's a stylistic device used very often in religious literature. For our religion will come to an end. We'll all lose our positions and our thrones and our influence if the reign of liberty begins. So, what is our greatest nightmare? That people become free, they are liberated. So, we must do everything possible to crush liberty. Our cause is the same. Let each one therefore propose that which shall be good unto him. Now, let us all put our heads together and see how this great task can be accomplished. Hark then, listen then, this is my counsel. Before Christ came, who was able to stand before us? These are the representatives of religion universally. It is his religion which hath ruined us. Let us abolish the religion of Christ. They all answered, It is true, let's abolish the religion of Christ. And the second of the 7 advanced toward the throne, took the human skull, poured the blood into it, drank it, and spoke as follows. It is not religion alone which should be abolished, but learning and thought. Now, Lamennais is of the opinion that the priestly class in every religion before and after Jesus Christ they still consider learning and thought as a great problem, a great threat, a great danger to religious establishments. So, it is not religion alone which should be abolished, but learning and thought also. For learning will discover that which is not for our interest, the world should know. And thought is always ready to contend against force. And all answered, It is true, let's abolish learning and thought. Now, of course, all of us know that there is no church anywhere in the world, and there is no religion which encourages true scholarship and what Matthew Arnold in the 19th century called the freedom to be at home among the best that is known and taught in the world, and to develop a dispassionate delight in the free play of ideas. All these are considered great dangers by the keepers of religion. And after having done, as the first 2 had done, the third spoke. What did the third say? When we shall have again plunged men into their stupidity. So, religion can survive only if people are made and kept stupid. When we shall have again plunged men into their stupidity, by taking them from religion and taking from them religion and learning and thought, we shall have done much, but there will still remain something more for us to do. Now you understand why Jesus preached, why he gave priority to teaching. He was training and challenging people to think precisely the opposite of what the priestly class in all religions insist on. That was why Jesus was considered a religiously subversive person, a great threat to Judaic religion who had to be exterminated. The brute possesses instinct and dangerous sympathies. It is necessary that one nation should not hear the cry of another people, lest if the one should murmur and rise, the other may be tempted to imitate. Let then no murmuring from without penetrate our kingdoms. Now, this person is of the opinion that even after true religion is suppressed, the religion of Jesus Christ is suppressed, even after thought and knowledge is crushed, the problem will still remain if the people are allowed to stay united. One person should not be able to hear the cry of another, because if they are united, sooner or later they'll put up an organized resistance against us and we will not be able to prevail over it. So, using every means available to us, we must keep people divided and scattered so that through their unity they don't gain the courage or strength to oppose us. And all answered, "It is true. Let no murmuring from without penetrate our kingdoms. Let the cry of human beings be suppressed so that it is not heard by anyone." And the fourth said, we have our interest. The priestly class has its interest. And the people have theirs opposed to us. People have their interests, we have our interests, and there is no common ground between their interests and our interests. The interests of the people are completely opposed to our interest. If they unite to defend that interest, if they unite to defend their interest, then we are finished. We will not be able to resist them. Next page. So they arrive at a solution. What is the solution? It sounds very modern. It's right in the midst of all of us. Divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. And this is the traditional strategy used by the priestly class to control the community of faith. They divide the community, divide the society of faith in order to keep the people divided and controlled. Let us make in every province, in every town, in every hamlet an interest opposed to that of other hamlets, so sorts of discord. It was realizing this that Jesus said in the 10th verse of the 10th chapter of John's Gospel, the thief comes, the thief here, capital T, representing Satan. What is a diabolic, what is a satanic mission? It is to scatter, to fragment, and to take away the hopes and the strength of the people. The thief comes only to scatter, to destroy, and to kill, right? So, let us make in every province, in every town, in every hamlet an interest opposed to that of other hamlets, of other towns and of other provinces, so that they will keep fighting among themselves, and then we are safe. In this way, all will hate each other and they will not think of uniting against us. And all answered, "It is true. Divide and conquer. Unity of the people will ruin us." And now it's the turn of the fifth one to speak. And a fifth, having twice filled with blood and twice emptied the skull, said, "I approve of all these measures. They are good but insufficient. Make men brutes. Take away, destroy in them all human sentiments. Make them brutes. It is okay, but that's not enough. But frighten the brutes. You have to keep them in constant fear, because fear is the most effective strategy for keeping people subjugated and alienated from themselves. Strike in the brute, strike terror into them by an inexorable justice and the severest punishments. If you would not, sooner or later they will devour you. If you don't keep them brutalized, terrified, under subjection, under the yoke of your authority, never allowing them to raise their heads or to become aware of their personal dignity and human rights, then you will be finished. The executioner is the prime minister of a good prince. A good prince, meaning an efficient king, survives because of his good prime minister. And what is the duty of the prime minister? to keep all rebellion suppressed, to avoid any challenge to the authority of the king. And all answered, "It is true. The executioner is the prime minister of a good prince." You understand why Jesus was crucified? Here it is. And the sixth said, "I acknowledge the advantage of prompt, terrible, and inevitable punishments. Still, there are heroic and desperate spirits who brave punishment. There are some people who may not be deterred by even the severest form of punishment. Would you govern men easily? Make them effeminate by voluptuousness." That is, promote in them a sensual way of life which will weaken their moral sense and drain away courage and capacity for commitment from them. And they are thereafter as good as dead. They are living corpses, and it's very easy to keep them subjugated for as long as you wish. Virtue will avail us nothing. She nourishes strength. If people are allowed to retain their virtue, they will become strong. So let us enfeeble them, exhaust them by corruption. Let's induce corruption in them. And all answer, "It is true. Let's exhaust strength and energy and encourage corruption." Then the seventh, which is the last, having like the others drank from the human skull, spake means spoke, after this manner, in this manner, his feet on the crucifix. Down with Christ. There is a war of extermination, external war betwixt him and us. There is an irreconcilable opposition between Christ and us. Even though we are priests, we represent the religious establishment, there is an irreconcilable, unending war between Christ and the henchmen of religion. But how shall we detach the people from Christ? It's a vain endeavor. What then shall be done? Hearken unto me. It is necessary to gain the priests of Christ with riches, with honors, and with power. After all this done, it is still not enough. If you really want to make sure that your stratagems succeed and you are permanently safe, what you have to do is to buy the priests of Christ with bribery, with honors, with riches, with power. Give them power, give them plenty of wealth, give them honor. Then they will become egocentric, they will become proud, arrogant, corrupt, and they will forget Christ altogether. And then you are safe, absolutely safe. And they will command the people in the name of Christ to be subject to us, and then we shall live happily, peacefully thereafter. So that is, it goes on like this. This much is enough. Now, unfortunately, because as Christians we have always been dissuaded from reading widely, thereby cultivating an acquaintance of what people felt, experienced, thought over the centuries, we think that Christianity is only what the priests tell us from day to day. Nothing can be farther from the truth. The clergy of every religion in every age has been distinguished more by their ignorance. The clergy are ignorant precisely because they have vested interest, and any vestige of vested interest will prevent the person and the group concerned from understanding the larger truth. And it's commonsensical that those who do not want to know the truth and those who do not want to cultivate a comprehensive sense of realities will not read, will not want to widen the horizon of their thought, would not want to be acquainted with the realities of the world. That is where religion becomes escapist. So the priests, as the custodians of religion, will create a very narrow world unto themselves, wherein they are in control and comfort, where their authority is not questioned by anyone, where everyone is obsequious to their authority, and where their words are the law. But the moment they have to move out of this mission compound or church compound, they are out of their depth. And Jesus, of course, clearly portrays this in the parable of the Good Samaritan. The priest and the Levite who come across this man who is lying wounded on the roadside, they simply do not know what to do. They're completely irrelevant. But go with them into the premises of the temple, they are the monarchs there. Right? So, religion is by nature escapist, and people who practice only escapist religiosity will knowingly or unknowingly cripple the development of their personality. They will become mere caricatures of the human person. Their plight will be pathetic. They will not be able to do justice to themselves. And it is the greatest tragedy you can think of. In contrast to this, Jesus envisages the individual to be the ultimate miracle. You are the light of the world. Compare or examine our plight today as very ardent and pietistic Christians. In light of this exalted mark that Jesus has set for us, the light of the world, if we assess ourselves using this as the yardstick of assessment, how will we fare? Our situation, our plight is pathetic, isn't it? And this particular vision that Abbe Lamennais gives in this book, Words of a Believer, gives us an insight into what has happened to us. And unless and until we diagnose the malady that is afflicting us, we will not ever consider the prospect of treating this malady so that we attain some degree of spiritual robustness and health, which is the purpose that we have in common. All of the work that's done under the auspices of this YouTube fellowship, a temple of thoughts, that's why I chose the word temple, is calculated or is aimed at ministering to people, including myself, in relation to their need to attain authentic personality and the fulfillment that every human being is entitled to attain and celebrate when they do justice to themselves. If we stay as slaves to various religions, various denominational interests, and sectarian advocacies, for the time being, we may feel that we are relevant or we are doing something great. But as years roll on, we will realize that we have been emptied out and we have become mere scarecrows and simulacrums of the human, and we are pathetic specimens of humanity. And by the time we actually realize the poverty and the bankruptcy that afflict us, it will be too late to do anything at all. And we'll spend the rest of our days, alas, in a state of self-revulsion and resentment. But then it avails us nothing. So in order to avert this most unfortunate state to which a human life can be consigned, wisdom demands that we become aware of this problem in advance. That's why in the Old Testament book, there is this interesting book. In the Old Testament, there is this interesting book titled Ecclesiastes, which is the book of wisdom. And in the 12th chapter of that book, verse 1, we read as follows: Remember your Creator while you are young. It is when you are young that you need this wisdom, so that you avoid these pitfalls. Otherwise, because of your ignorance and ignorance of the realities beyond the narrow little mission compound or church compound to which you are chained or limited, you will think that this is the ultimate truth. There is nothing beyond it. Please understand that religious zeal is erected on ignorance, or at best partial knowledge. Partial knowledge, which is knowledge of partiality, which is actually worse than ignorance. And the manifestations of this are many. If I go on describing all of that, time will get out of hand. But I strongly recommend this book, Words of a Believer, by the excommunicated Roman Catholic distinguished priest who was something of a celebrity in his days. His name is Abbe Lamennais. The spelling once again, Lamennais. Lamennais. Because of the French word, the last S is not pronounced. The title of the book, Words of a Believer. Please look up this book. And what I've shared with you is a section from page 63 to 70, which deals with the vested interests of the priestly class, their keen motivation to corrupt religion, and to exclude the danger of human beings or believers being liberated, being allowed to think freely and to grow and develop, or to develop a sense of unity and solidarity, belonging together, so that the vested interests of the priestly class can be perpetuated till thy kingdom come. And it is a theme of tremendous contemporary interest, relevance. That's the reason why I thought it would be worthwhile for me to share this part of the book with you. So I conclude the very brief and inadequate introduction to this very interesting book, Words of a Believer by Lamennais, which can be easily downloaded from the net. And please read it. And then on the basis of that, if you have any question to raise, please let me know. We'll be able to discuss your questions further. Thank you very much. And I wish all of you a great time reading, thinking, celebrating our awareness, which is, as the Roman Catholic priests of the 70s of the last century in South America, particularly, what's his name? Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, who defined education itself as a celebration of awareness. He was complemented by another thinker from the same context. His name was Ivan Illich, and one of his celebrated books is Medical Nemesis. Medical Nemesis, which is an expose of the vested interests of the global medical industry and how human health is ruined by the medical industry because of its greed, and how scientific knowledge is suppressed so that people are kept away from true knowledge and preserved as guinea pigs for the international drug industry to thrive at the expense of human beings. Medical Nemesis, subtitle is Structural Iatrogenesis by Ivan Illich. The other book that I refer to is Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire. Both are South American thinkers of the last century, particularly the 60s and 70s of the last century. That's when they became globally very famous. That's the time when I became aware of them. Thank you very much, and see you soon.